This is the Freeheel Life podcast number 7. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you live from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And here we are again. And I'm joined by none other than
Telly Ash.
That's not your name.
I like that. I like that Telly Ash is your new thing.
You're rebranding.
Ashley,
It's really not.
Ashley Berkowitz and Taylor Johnson.
Telly Tay's back.
Telly Tay. We're here. So
Back again.
welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
For the seventh episode of the Freeheel Life podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're at least staying on top of it and staying regular.
Yeah, we've been pretty good.
Yeah, we'll keep it up.
We're
having fun.
We're almost to the 10 mark. Couple things, newsroom worthy stuff before we talk about the topic of the day is the 6th annual World Telemark Day is happening on March 7th, 2020. So if you didn't listen to the last podcast, I did a solo one talking about this, what World Telemark Day is, and you can go back and listen to that. And pretty much you can celebrate anywhere, hopefully with some friends. But if you're absolutely the only telemarker in your zone, you can celebrate World Telemark Day on that same day. Maybe we need to come up with like a doctor's note for your work or something like that, so you can go do that.
And I don't know, a lot of people that don't work at Freeheel Life, like me, don't have to work Saturdays. So,
That's a good.
but if you do have to work Saturdays, yeah, maybe Dr. Sondre can write you a note.
Dr. Sondre Norheim. You have a powder addiction you need to take care of.
Is dropping in
The powder flu.
Oh, that's funny. All right. So hopefully we'll make like a downloadable thing. So other than that, on telemarkskier.com, if you're into reading, we did an updated review of the Majo 2.1 from the M equipment. You can check that out. And if you're into having fun and you know how to edit basic video and you like to get rowdy, there is the King of the Heel competition that Telemark Colorado is putting on, and you can go find Telemark Colorado on the interweb and find the guidebook that shows you all the points that you can make by
All sorts of challenges.
Yeah, I think
Anything from skiing a bump line and calling your mom at the same time
And eating
to
4 breakfast burritos.
slamming breakfast burritos.
If you can actually eat 4 breakfast burritos and still live comfortably, will you please write in or comment or email or whatever we do here to respond? I really am curious. I can eat a decent amount of food, and I know people can eat more food than me, but 4 breakfast, 4?
And there's no stipulation on the size.
I think I see that's what we were talking about. Is I think the
mini breakfast, egg roll sized breakfast burritos.
No, Cooper brought up Cooper, who also works in the shop. Shout out to Cooper. Yeah. The McDonald's breakfast burritos are pretty small.
That's true. Actually, Del Taco is the best. They actually have a small. It's called
Actually sponsored by Del Taco.
I wish. Oh my gosh, man, dream of dreams. But anyway,
sorry, all you granola eating.
Yeah, I can't be Telly Ash because I'm gonna be Del Taco Ash.
She's gonna sell out to the man.
No, but they have a breakfast roller, so if that counts as a burrito, it's pretty tiny.
I don't know. You'll have to talk to Telemark Colorado guys about the rules. But no. Anyways, put your teams together. It's teams of 5, and there's going to be prizes for the people that win.
We got until March 1st on the video submissions, and challenges are ranked on a point system from kind of hard to, or from easy to hard. More points for the hard challenges, obviously. One of the challenges is called Freeheel Life. Get a Telemark tattoo worth 500 points.
If
I will not be
on their team,
getting a tattoo.
I'll do that one, but basically none of the others.
I will accept team submissions for anyone willing to get to a tattoo.
I think you almost got your team made. I don't think any of my tattoos actually count, so I'll go get a new one. I was telling these guys before the podcast that CJ from Telemark Colorado got a tattoo machine, and I told him that I want him to give me a tattoo.
Oh, jeez.
So maybe I'll get bonus points.
I don't know.
But we were talking about whether I should.
It actually sounds like a conflict of interest considering he's putting it on.
Extra bonus points. I was saying I would like to get a Telemark Colorado tattoo. And Tay brought up the idea that maybe I should get a Telemark Utah tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like Salt Lake
probably
is more of your home. Like, I know you grew up and lived all over the place when you're younger, but
at this point,
I kind of want. I'm falling behind though, because there's a couple of tattoos I was supposed to get. I wanted to get a Black Shoes tattoo when we went to France, and I don't remember what happened.
I think we tried to find a tattoo parlor in France, but
I don't think we found.
We kind of had a packed agenda. What's it called? Agenda, not
schedule.
Agenda. No, there's an itinerary. That's the official word for.
I still want to get a Black Shoes tattoo. I still want the Black Shoes tattoo.
That's pretty cute.
I feel like it would have been cooler to get it in France.
Yeah.
I think when we were in Chamonix, there was a tattoo place, but I don't think it was open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were
kind of a lot not open.
Yeah, we were in Chamonix and kind of the end of the season, so it was more of a. We didn't get the full Chamonix après experience, but we did ski Blue Wood Pow off the top of the Aiguille du Midi. Probably the worst French ever. But the Aiguille du Midi.
I only know how to say I speak terrible French.
The gnarliest.
I don't even know how to say that.
You don't know how to. Je parle français très mal. See, that's pretty good. If anybody heard that out there, tell me if I said that properly. We really did. Yeah. Anyways, so tattoos. I got the Black Shoes one. I want to try and get that. And then there's actually if anybody remembers Telemark Tribe out there, that's another one I want to get. And that was some Italian guys, and both of the gentlemen passed away that did that, and I always wanted to get that one too. So maybe I'll be able to get that.
I don't know. You got a lot of skin left.
I know. I think Ashley has more tattoos than I do now, which is crazy. All right. Anyways, moving on.
All right. Let's see.
We're gonna get into this episode, you guys.
Boots.
Today we're going to talk about the basics of Telemark boots and the sizes and shapes and features of the Telemark shoes.
Oh, jeez. Tall shoes.
I think, Ashley, did you say you don't like the Telemark shoes?
No, I just think it's funny because, like, in French, they don't use the word, there's, like, not boot, it's shoe. But then when the French people are still speaking English, they don't use the word boot, even though we in English call it a boot. They still call it a shoe. And I just think it's funny.
Yeah, but if you tell me I'm looking for an NTN ski shoe, I know what you're talking about.
Well, of course you do, but it's the point. Just like, literally, if you translate de nada, it means of nothing, but it means you're welcome. So that is my analogy for French people. If they're speaking English, they should call it a boot. So yes, I know what they're saying.
So today's episode is truly about the basics of Telemark boots and shoes and sizing and shapes and features. Anyways, the objective that we're trying to reach today, and hopefully this will help you guys. This is sort of as comprehensive of an overview of boots that we can give you after having a shop for the last 5 years, and little tricks we've learned, and about how to size people, and especially figuring out what boot size you actually have. That seems to be a really common one. People coming in, they're looking for a new boot, and they realize, I don't even know what size boot I am. I don't know how to size boots, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about identifying boots, where you can find the sizes on different brands of boots. And we'll probably wrap up with the myth about half sizes and talk a little bit about that. So I think we're going to give this over to Tay. Now you can have a sip of wine, man. We're drinking wine.
It's Friday night at the Freeheel Life.
It's Friday night. We got an okay bottle of red wine.
It's okay.
Tastes fine to me. I'm not a wino, really.
Yeah.
I appreciate wine, but I don't know exactly what this tastes like.
He also has an unopened can of Rainier next to his glass of wine.
Well, we were going for a little lighter beer.
I like the dichotomy of a Rainier can next to your
glass.
I mean, it's my favorite of the cheap beers. I think it has the most flavor.
I've always been partial to PBR, but I feel like that lately that has gone out of fashion.
Oh, it's all right.
Oh, yeah.
We got an 18 pack of PBR from a customer today, so Ashley can take a few home.
I drink lots of local craft beers, but
before we jump into the boots, just to clarify why. So PBR is owned by the Goat Company,
the same holding company.
We're not same company that has the Goat, the retail company.
We don't say that word around here.
Yeah, we're not gonna say it, but they own PBR, and unfortunately, someone got.
I feel like that's not PBR's fault.
No,
they have a rich history in Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, someone kind of got a little upset, and they thought we were supporting the Goat Company, and
which would be really counterintuitive to our interests, honestly.
Just to be clear, is our ski techs kind of take whatever people bring, and sometimes they bring PBR, sometimes they bring IPAs, and sometimes you just drink the beer.
And it's the thought that counts.
It is the thought that counts.
We appreciate all the beer that is brought, whatever it is.
It's a nice way to tip your ski tech.
It is.
Usually, I would suggest bringing the beer after the skis are mounted, just to make sure bindings are mounted straight.
Better safe than sorry when it comes to that.
But, all right, let's...
Back to boots.
Back to talking about...
We're talking about boots.
Beer. I mean, boots. Okay, so basics of a Telemark boot. I guess how long ago do we wish to go? Are we talking about modern Telemark starting in the 70s?
Start at the beginning.
I think I covered a little bit of stuff in the NTN versus 75 podcast. I mean, I think just at least at our shop, I mean, we do actually have customers come in with leather boots. And
that is true. Leather is not dead.
Leather's not dead, despite what anybody thinks out there.
The cow is dead, but the leather boot is not.
Wow.
I like that. But yeah, no, just I think just maybe give them a brief overview, just kind of like what kind of Telemark boots are you going to come across?
Okay. Well, in our shop, we do see a lot of leather boots. We see also a lot of plastic 75 millimeter boots. We see a lot of plastic NTN boots. We see it all. If it's Telemark, it comes in our door. Starting back in, I guess, probably the 70s. Maybe Josh could double check me on some dates a little better. I was not around in the 70s, but I think
actually only one of us
where
was.
Telemark kind of started in throwing some shade over there. Where I think Telemark started in, at least in the United States, kind of the more modern revival starting in the 1970s. It was really people taking cross-country gear, which was freeheel gear at the time, and translating the Telemark technique into using those skis going downhill. So back in the day, the 75 millimeter measurement of our duckbill toe with the 3-pin, that was the 75 millimeter Nordic norm. Today, the cross-country stuff would be the NNN, the new Nordic norm, new Telemark norm. I'm brainwashed working here at the NTN shop, I guess. But so, leather boots, low cuff, lace up. Then they started getting, a little bit sturdier in terms of having some plastic ankle support. That would be a boot like the Solo Extreme. And then we started adding, a buckle maybe. There's some Fabianos in our shop on the museum wall that have one buckle that kind of goes across the instep. All the way into, as boots started transitioning, people wanted more downhill power. We went to boots, like a Merrell Super Comp or in the Solo Extreme Racer, where it was, a really pretty tall cuff and, 4 buckles and some sort of plastic cuff where you had a lot of downhill power. And I think all of this stuff, as far as the progression of the boots, went along with progression of bindings where, skis started getting bigger. So bindings needed to get more sturdy. So boots needed to get more sturdy so you could drive that ski. And then starting in 1992, Scarpa totally changed the game with the Terminator boots, which were the first plastic Telemark boots. I don't know how long the Alpine world had plastic boots at the time, but definitely long before 92.
Like the 50s.
Yeah, so long
50s or 60s.
Long before 92. But, Scarpa came out with the Terminator and then the T2, and those were both 2-buckle boots. I think the Terminator had a power strap, but the Terminator, the purple one, was just a little bit taller cuff. So starting from then, we went to, okay, now I have a couple different classes, from low cuff boots to taller boots with kind of different purposes. Lower cuff are going to be easier to walk in. Taller cuffs are going to have more downhill power. And then same thing kind of translated into plastic boots, where we had a T2, which was a lower cuff boot, lighter weight, maybe better for, backcountry skiing, or just someone who liked, the more freedom of a lower cuff boot, a little bit softer flexing. And, then boots started to get bigger, and eventually probably around, well, I guess I don't know the date of the first like T-race boot, but boots started getting bigger, taller, stiffer on some end. But, now today, even in the modern stuff where, we have a full lineup of boots from a company like Scarpa, where we have a T4, which is essentially like the old T2, where it's a low cuff, soft flexing 2-buckle boot, all the way to 4-buckle boots like a T1 or the NTN stuff. And all these boots are kind of going to serve a little bit different purposes. Like, it also suits your style. Like me personally, my pretty much everyday boot would be a TX Comp. So that's the 4-buckle stiff NTN boot from Scarpa. I spend a lot of time skiing the resorts on bigger, stiffer, heavier skis with, powerful bindings like a 22 Designs Outlaw X. So I think for me, that setup between ski, boot, binding all kind of pairs well together, where, if I have a powerful, demanding ski, I want a powerful, demanding boot and a powerful, demanding binding. But for someone else that, I guess we could talk about the gear my just whole family uses, because all but Philip is a Telemark skier, the one black sheep in our family.
Ooh, Philip, what the hell?
He said he'll start tele skiing when he's old. And this year I think he turned 28 this year, and I said, you're old enough to tele in his birthday card. He said he'll start telling when he's 40. So I at least got 12 more years to do.
So what you're saying is 40's old.
I'm not saying, I didn't say it. Philip said it. That's when he thinks he'll be old enough to tele. But, like my grandfather, for example, he's 87, still dropping knees, as hardcore as they come. He's a super special guy. But, he skis a Scarpa T2 boot and a Volley switchback. So that's a much softer, flexing, lighter weight setup. And for his purposes, up until the last couple of years, for the most of the time, he'd be spending the majority of his time on skis, hiking in the backcountry. So he was looking for lightweight, better range of motion on a walk mode, and just softer flexing. Like,
is he on the T2 Eco?
He is on the T2 Eco.
Yep.
But so he's like, for what he's doing, where he would go up the Wildcat lift at Alta twice, do 2 obligatory Wildcat warm-ups, go up and over to the other side, up Supreme, off the backside of the resort, and he'd be skinning around all day. So for that purpose, like for him, spending more time walking, lower cuff, bigger range of motion, softer flexing, that would work better. So when we start talking about boots, it's like if you walked into our shop and you asked me, hey, I'm new to telemark skiing, I need telemark boots. You might not have much background information, but you found yourself in a telemark shop. That's anyone you talk to, whether it's me, Ashley, Josh, or whoever else works here, you're going to be able to pick their brain about information. I mean, we have the information about the gear. So yeah. I'm going to ask you what you're doing, where you're skiing, what you're looking to get out of it. If you're an alpine skier, maybe what types of boots you might have skied in the past in terms of flex or stiffness. Like, I'm going to do my best to kind of take whatever information I can get from you and translate that into what's going to work for you in a telemark setup so that you have an enjoyable time. Because, from a leather boot to a 3-pin binding to a stiff NTN boot and an NTN binding, that is a whole world of difference. Like, they're both still 100% telemark, but totally different purposes in my eyes. So I'm going to ask you, you spending most of your time skiing resorts? Are you spending most of the time in the backcountry? Are you doing a bit of both? Where are you looking to, have the performance of that boot? So, if you walked in and said, okay, I'm looking to ski most resorts, I'm a fairly aggressive skier, I like a stiffer boot in terms of, just a ski boot or a tele boot, whatever. we're probably going to start looking at something, in a 4-buckle class, whether it's, T1 or a Garmin Energy or a Scott Synergy or something like that, where, you're going to have a little bit taller cuff, which I think as a skier, if you have a taller cuff, you're going to be able to kind of pressure the front of that cuff and drive that boot and drive that ski a little easier. And then, find a binding to pair with that. But if you tell me, I like a soft flexing boot, I want to spend more time in the backcountry, then we're going to be starting to look at more a 3-buckle or a 2-buckle boot even. Like, a gentleman walked into the shop with his wife this week, and, they do a lot of kind of like a little more than cross country, but mostly going for distance, like in the Uinta Mountains here in Utah. And, they're on like a fish scaled ski with some shape and a metal edge and a boot. Like, he ended up with a T4 boot, and his wife ended up with a Scott Excursion boot, which are both kind of in that same class of, it's more support than a cross country boot, more support than a leather boot, but totally soft flexing, totally easy to walk in. And for them, it's like when they're skiing, most of their objective is going for distance. So, I was never going to sell him a T1, because if you're going to ski a big, stiff, heavy boot on a fish scaled ski and you're really just looking for a little more support going down when you're kind of doing more rolling terrain, kind of pseudo cross country skiing, it's not the right fit. So I think it's important to understand how boots are going to perform and then what you're going to use those for.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. That's actually a really good overview, man. And I like that that last example. I think is super helpful. I think I posted something up today on our Instagram account and our Facebook that was it had the funny thing was that I basically was just like, hey, I'm gonna post a couple things that are, hey, these are the most popular items that people are buying. Not really like an endorsement or anything. There's definitely a couple of people that like right off the bat were like, I disagree with that.
The gear fires all of you people up.
But it was kind of funny because I was like, oh, this would be great. I'll just tell people like what people are actually buying. And instead, like people were like fighting about it. So, but what it made me think, and someone made a really cool comment that I guess I hadn't realized, but made me happy about. And this, you kind of illustrated it. I think when people come in here, what we try to do is actually figure out what the application is that what are you trying to achieve? And that is such a broad range. Like we're talking about, like you literally, like people trip out when I tell them like people, my buddies that run Alpine shops or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, like we had like this customer come in with like leather boots and like 210 skis. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, like for real. Like, and they're like, were they like giving it for the museum? And I'm like, no, like this is like legitimately someone came in and this is like, that's their setup. And so I think the thing kind of going back to this Facebook thing that someone wrote, they're like, oh man, that's a great way to be a retailer, is you're not trying to push gear on people. And I was like, I guess I never really thought about that. I mean, I guess we kind of talk about that at some point, the idea that we really don't push gear on people, but I guess that was, it kind of made me think like, oh yeah, like I think that is what, if you're a telemarketer yourself and you've tried all this different gear, it's really important to realize like, oh yeah, like we don't want to push stuff on people that is going to make them feel different than they want to feel on the mountain. And I think that illustrates it really well. Like people that are hiking the Uintas, they're still telemark skiers, but like the application of that particular setup is not the same for someone who's like,
it's a totally different style than like doing tram laps at Snowbird when you're
right,
big, stiff, heavy boot and you're skiing your 120 underfoot, 190 POW skis. Like it's just a totally different application. So, I think when Josh says we're not trying to push gear on you, it's like, I want you leaving with the gear that achieves whatever you're looking for out of that gear. It's like, the gentleman that walks in with a leather boot and a 210, that gear is working for what he is wanting to get out of skiing.
Yeah.
And
or like I tried on the TX Comp the other day, like I wear the women's TX Pro and it's been great for me. But I tried on ZX Comp and I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, you were saying you couldn't even flex it.
It's real stiff. Like I really had to get down there to flex that. So, that's just not the boot for me where I'm at currently.
And you were just trying it on the floor, not in a binding.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we should send you out and ski.
It was noticeably different, which
we should send you out. We should send you out and ski on that just to see.
I would probably be making parallel turns.
Yeah, probably.
I would never do that.
Well,
at least not by choice, but in this case, it would pretty much just be because.
Yeah, but your use of vocabulary is okay. Parallel versus the A word.
The A. Yeah.
Never that.
Okay, I think that was a pretty good overview of boots. I mean, and I like how you kind of took like more like a story style of like a little bit of history, kind of like what we see. I think people that's the striking part to me is I think because we're a Telemark shop, we get to see a lot of cool stories. Like people coming in from like way broad range of people just looking for different stuff.
Yeah, we have a totally cool and unique demographic of skiers. I mean, I have fit someone for a Telemark boot probably from the ages of 6 until definitely in the 80s this year. So that's, I mean, that's wide. 75 years difference between skiers. Like that's very cool to me where it's like, men, women, kids, old people, young people,
everyone in between.
In between.
So I think just kind of the synopsis of like what the basics of the Telemark boot for everybody out there listening is you basically have the 75 millimeter stuff, which incorporates obviously the older leather boots all the way to modern plastic boots that are still being made. Again, if you want to go back and really get the lowdown on 75 millimeter and NTN and what it all means, a couple podcasts ago we did one on that. And NTN boots, new Telemark norm is what that stands for, and it just is. There are two different ways to fasten your boot to the binding on the ski, and the biggest thing is just make sure, like if you're getting into Telemark, you're brand new, all of this crazy jargon means nothing to you and you're like NTN 75 millimeter, I have no idea what you're talking about, but your homie gave you a pair of boots and you're stoked to get into Telemark, just make sure that the binding you get matches the boot that you have.
So if you got a square toe boot, you need a square toe box with a cable, right, or some sort of that. Or if you have a round toe is NTN.
Right. That's about as basic. It's kind of hard without like visually showing you, but like you can definitely call us or whatever, and we can kind of figure that out. So, okay, I think that was a good overview of that. I was going to kind of go into how to figure out what size you need. There's not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, there's quite a bit to talk about, but what I was going to point everyone to that's listening to the podcast, if you aren't on our YouTube channel, which is the Telemark Skier YouTube channel, Telemark Skier Magazine, look that up. That's kind of where Telemark Skier Magazine and the Freeheel Life shop sort of merge into one. So we've got everything from stoke videos and gear reviews to more of like the technical videos, like how to fix things, what your binding does, all that stuff, overviews of new products.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, Josh filmed me talking about how to size yourself for Telemark boots. And, this mostly applies to online because we have a lot of customers that do not live in Salt Lake City, and you can't really walk into a ski shop and talk about how to size a Telemark boot. So, go check that video out. It's definitely going to give you a good basic overview, but Josh can fill you in on the bullet points here if we want.
Yeah, and I think the video will help you. The basics of like sizing your boot is Mondo sizing, something important to know. A lot of people are going to ask that when you go into a ski shop.
What does Mondo sizing mean? I'll pretend like I don't know anything. I'll just ask Josh some questions here. How about that?
Yeah.
So
21 questions about boots. Go.
Okay, Josh, I wear a size 9 boot. Can you please fit me?
Perfect. So like Taylor just came in the shop. He's got a size 9 US shoe. So I'm going to here's a little trick for you guys. First off, Mondo sizing is basically a sizing chart that goes across the board. It's more or less your foot in centimeters.
Directly correlated.
So it's basically heel to toe. Your foot's going to measure at 27 centimeters. That way, men and women's boots are all one sizing across the board. And it kind of eliminates the idea of US sizing, UK sizing, European sizing. We all can use Mondo sizing to kind of figure out what we are. So I'll tell you guys a little trick if you don't know it, that'll give you kind of a ballpark of what Mondo sizing is. And let's say I just met Taylor. He walks in the shop. I'm a 27 Mondo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add those two numbers together. I'm going to add the 2 plus the 7 and I get a 9. And that tells me that he just said he's a US 9. That Mondo sizing, more or less, that gives me a ballpark. I'm still going to measure him, but it actually gives me kind of a ballpark of where you're at.
I knew you for like probably 3 or 4 years before you told me that. Totally blew my mind. Never thought about that once.
I think if I have actually.
So Ashley's been here since the beginning, and I never told her that.
Apparently not. Too busy laying the floor. I'm paying the bills.
Yes. Yeah, so the what am I saying? The Mondo sizing. I was about to say the Majo sizing.
What happens when you get to 30?
Plug for him equipment there.
Well, here's the trick. So,
stumped ya.
So that's the fastest way. You're like US 9. I'm like, oh, okay. If I didn't have a Brannick, like a measuring tool, that's kind of where I would ballpark you at is that 27.0. And yeah, to answer your question, when you get to 30, here's what I do. Here's what I do. So I go back to 29.
Although that does only work for men's US sizing, not women.
Subtract 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Add them together, subtract 1.
That's
still a fancy trick.
Welcome to the Freeheel Life math class.
That's a good. Okay, so it's just subtract 1.
Yeah.
So Mondo for women's sizing.
Or no, actually,
in US.
Add 1. Because, like, for example, I'm a US women's 9 most of the time, and I wear a 26 Mondo boot or a 25.5 in Scarpa, but we'll get there later. And
oh yeah, that's true. That's easy.
So like 2 plus 6 is 8, and that is on Scarpa's size conversion chart a US men's 8, but it's a US women's 9.
Oh, okay.
But that's why we have Mondo sizing, so that's
exactly
easy. It's just we wear 26 and 27.
Complicated.
So that's basically how I kind of like first get the Mondo sizing. So if you're out there kind of wondering what Mondo sizing is, that's kind of a simple way that you could figure it out with US sizing. Add the two numbers together and whatnot. So the sizing video itself, kind of what we encourage people to do. We're always trying to find ways to communicate with people, on the phone or online. Hey, what size boot do I want to get in? And where we usually start people, and you guys will see this in the YouTube video if you go there, is take a piece of masking tape, put it on the floor, put your foot on it, mark your heel and your toe, and then measure it with ideally you're measuring it with a metric ruler of some sort.
Yeah, you want a centimeter conversion so you can translate that to Mondo sizing.
Right. And you can kind of figure it out there, and then from there we can kind of fit you out. And then we probably need to do some sort of a follow-up video talking about kind of the 1 and 2 finger fit. But
yeah, I think we had a brief little discussion about that. But okay, so let's say, Josh, I walked into the shop. I said I have a size 9 boot. You measured my foot on a Brannick device, which is essentially it measures me for Mondo sizing, which is centimeters. So if you don't have a Brannick device, you can use a tape measure. Okay, my foot measured 26.5, 27 centimeters. Now what? So you grab some boots for me. Where do we start?
Right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to shell size you, because I think I know where you're at in terms of measuring you on that device. But what I want to do is I want to measure you in the shell of the boot, which means that I'm going to remove the liner from it. And I've just got the plastic part of the boot, which we call the shell. What I'm going to do is have you actually put your foot in the shell. I usually put it into ski mode personally. which means that I'm locking the cuff forward. I'm not sure if we've ever really standardized that.
I guess I go walk mode because it's not really changing the bottom half of the shell, and it gives me more space to reach in there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very
What do you do,
smart.
Ash?
I just shine my flashlight in there and put the little measuring stick inside. Well, I haven't actually ever. I
guess it really doesn't matter. So, but either way, so I'm going to have someone put their foot in the shell without the liner, and I'm going to have them slide to the front of the boot until their toes are just barely touching the front of the plastic. And then what I'm going to do is, shine a flashlight down so I can see the distance between the heel, their actual heel, and the back of the plastic of the boot. We have a nice little stick that we can measure, and it kind of simulates what we call either a one finger fit. If I were to put one finger down there and try to put a single finger between the heel and the plastic of the boot, or a 2-finger fit, and 2 fingers kind of stacked together so that it's the long way.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of like, as a boot fitter, you're gonna just feel what 1 finger versus 2 finger feels like, but it basically is like, you know, a little bit over a centimeter worth of space, or closer to 2 centimeters worth of space.
Yep. And that's really what so in kind of layman's terms, a 1-finger fit's going to be more of what we maybe call a performance fit. That 2-finger fit's going to be more of a relaxed fit, a comfort fit. So,
because if you think about it, a centimeter is not that big. So sometimes people are more comfortable with it being a little bit more snug. Sometimes people need a little bit more room. Obviously, feet have all kinds of other things even besides
there's all
just
other
length
stuff going on.
So, you know, there's like some wiggle room in there between, and that's why the shell fit is sometimes a good thing too, to kind of determine where you're at, because it's not always just as straightforward as like, oh, your foot's this length, so this will be the one for you. You know, people sometimes end up in a slightly different one, but not too far off, and that's why we're big on the actual sizing of your foot and doing all of these different things.
Yeah, we can definitely go too big or too small, which can be a problem, but I mean, I think ideally I like to get most people into a boot where it's totally a comfortable fit, in the sense of, you know, your toes aren't curled up at the front of the boot. You're not losing toenails halfway through the ski day, but you also want to be connected to that ski boot, because if you're really swimming in a boot, it's like whatever your brain's trying to make your feet tell your skis to do, there's just going to be a little bit of
there's
delay.
A point where it's going to be too big or it's going to be too small.
Yeah.
And you want to find the right one.
Okay, so now, Josh, we measured my foot. We did a shell fit on me. So let's say I had let's say I'm in the boat where a lot of people are, where I might be kind of one or the other. Like, I'm either like a solid 1-finger fit and maybe sizing down to a 26 shell, or more like a 2-finger fit in a 27, or let's say whatever the numbers are. Like, if you have me try on a couple boots, then what are we kind of looking on? So I put the liner back in and I put my foot in the boot. What am I trying to feel? Yeah,
and a lot of times we'll maybe right off the bat start, like we know kind of where you're going to be at. So I think you're going to be a 27. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be a 28. So I bring out a 26.0 and a 27.0. And we'll talk a little bit about why I chose those a little bit later on. And I'm probably going to bring new boots out. Let's say I choose the comfort fit. You're like right at a 27.0 Mondo sizing, and I'm going to put you in that boot. I'm going to have you kind of buckle it up, and probably the first thing you're going to here's what the average person says, and tell me if you agree with this, but I feel like when I've been in the front of the shop, this is the first thing that'll happen. I just measured them, I shell fitted them, I put them in that brand new boot, and the first thing they say is, way too small, man.
For sure, I agree.
It's so tight.
So tight.
I can't. Nope. This is the wrong one. This is way too tight.
It's gonna be tight.
But wait. There's more.
And so part of that is this, especially in a newer boot. If we're talking brand new boots, this thermomoldable liner that you're gonna get in most boots, in the Scarpa, the Scott, the Crispies, it's gonna be tight. And to the point where, and people, if you're out there and you're looking at new boots, I can't tell you how many times in the last 5 years people have tried on a boot somewhere thinking that it's the right size because it's comfortable, and then they're a size too big because once they go ski it, it packs out, and all of a sudden they're in too big of a boot. But
I actually got that phone call like 2 or 3 years ago. The guy like wanted to get another pair of boots, and he's like, so I bought a pair of TX, I don't remember which one, pros or comps.
Don't name any. Don't name where they got them.
I don't know. Not from us. It was not from us. It was definitely not from us. And he like literally said, pretty much direct quote, I bought them and they fit great. And then I heat molded them and they were too big. And I was like,
right.
No, you got a boot that was too big.
Yeah, we definitely got to be comfortable with some level of uncomfortableness because, you know, I got a brand new pair of Scarpa boots this year. They're the same size I've worn for many seasons. I know it's a great fit. I'm connected to the boot, but my feet aren't falling asleep or anything like that. First thing out of the box, throw them on because it's a new boot. It's fun. I want to put on my new boots. There is zero way I could ski them without doing that mold. My foot was strangled, falling asleep. I'm sitting there at home. My little brother, who's my roommate, he's like, dude, why do you have those boots on? Take them off. And I'm like, no, it's my new boot. I want to start breaking them in.
I tell lots of customers that story as an example.
So I try on this boot.
Yeah, it's going to feel tight.
Then like it feels tight in the volume, but like.
This is what I was going to say. Here's the little trick that I like to do. If you're putting on a brand new boot, you're my customer, you put on that 27.0. And the first thing you say is like,
it's tight.
Way too tight. Way too tight, bro. I can't handle this. But here's the one little trick that I've found generally works. Is I'll usually point to kind of the instep and be like, this is probably where it feels tight, right? Like it's a lot of pressure kind of on the top of your foot and probably in the toe a little bit. And that's normally where people are feeling it when they put a brand new boot on. And but the one question I ask them is I say, are your toes flat and sensing the front or feeling the front of the boot?
Yeah, my toes are just barely brushing the front when I'm standing straight up. They're not curled, but it just feels tight.
Right. And that's exactly what I'm always looking for. If your toes are curled and you're up against the end of the boot and your toes are curled, then I'm starting to wonder, this is probably too small of a boot, even without the mold done. Because even when the mold's not done, usually you nailed it. Like your toes are still flat, like they're not curled, but you're sensing the front of the boot. And then, you know, we'll have them lean forward. They'll feel it pull off the front of the boot a little bit and kind of a forward motion. And that tends to be kind of a good indicator for me. Everything else is tight, except your toes are flat. And I know some of this, there's probably some boot fitter out there and you probably hate how I'm explaining this, but I mean, this is really how we get people in the right size boots and telly.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a very basic way of sizing people up. And I was just going to mention just before you jump in, the next trick that we tend to do here. And I know a lot of you do not have access to these boots. So we're always trying to improve on how to size you online. But one thing we do here in the shop that always blows people away, the guy that usually is like, way too tight, man. This is not the right boot. Do you like that voice?
Bro.
Yeah. And he says, bro,
my boots are too tight.
Bro, no, not this boot.
And so guess what we do? We pull out a rental boot that is molded. And a lot of times we'll be like, all right, we'll try this one on.
I pretty much make everyone try on the demo boot.
And a lot of times this is what happens. And just to kind of illustrate the point, you know, here's Tay. He's like, dude, bro, boot's way too tight, bro.
So tight.
Bro, so tight. Can't handle it. I'm not.
How am I gonna shred the power with this tight boot?
That's what I'm saying. See, you got it right. You know what they say. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, okay, try this one on the other foot. And a lot of times we'll put a rental boot on. It's got a liner that's beat out. It's the exact same size. And almost 100% of the time you'll slide that on. As long as you've measured it properly, you're going to slide that boot on.
Bro, this feels great.
I can get pitted.
I can get pitted. Whoppa. Yeah, exactly. And the guy's going to be stoked. And all of a sudden, and he's like, oh, is this the size up? And you're like, no.
Nope.
This is exactly what I'm having you wear, but it's molded, it's beat out, it's a little bit older liner. So,
because the liners are designed to be molded or skied out. They are not designed on day one for you to go out and be like, this is awesome, because it's not awesome.
And it takes that much material out a lot of times, and I think that's something really good to illustrate.
You have like a centimeter worth of that thermal mold foam around the entirety of your liner, at least with the Intuition stuff, which Scarpa uses, and definitely other brands out there with Scott and Crispy, but we see a lot of Scarpa stuff in the shop, so that's kind of what I'm most familiar with. But with that, it's like if I tried on that rental boot and I'm like, bro, this feels awesome, like I want this pair, then Josh can tell me, okay, that other pair of boots that was like strangling your foot, but the toes weren't curled, I will be able to make those boots feel better, because that rental boot that had a little more room in it, because that liner is not as dense as it was straight out of the box, I'm going to be able to custom fit that to your foot, and every little bump and curvature of your foot is going to be set into the new boot. So, I mean, it makes me happy actually when I'm fitting people for boots, and they go from, I see their facial expression when they first try on that brand new boot out of the box, and it's like, that is not happening. That is so tight, to fast forward 30 minutes later, once we've done a heat mold, and they're like, huge smile on their face. They're dancing around the shop. They can't wait to go skiing. It can make a huge difference for people. So definitely I recommend, taking, even if you bought your boots online, no one sells Telemark boots near you. If you want to buy those boots, you can do a quick shell fit on yourself. You could kind of go through those steps of, my toes are just brushing the front, but I'm not curled. It's just tight in terms of the volume. Any other ski shop that does, heat moldable liners are standard across the ski industry, from Alpine to Tele. So if you took it to any shop and tip your boot fitter a 6-pack of beverages
of local craft beer,
and he'll take care of you for sure.
Awesome. Okay, that was it. Hopefully that kind of helps you guys get a pretty good idea of where to go with that. I'm going to let Ashley talk about this next thing, because this is something that the three of us, every season, we kind of laugh about it, because when we first started the shop, this was like the arch nemesis. I feel like we started selling more used boots. We were selling new boots, and we're getting a lot of history items too. And I think this is probably a topic that not a lot of, I personally don't know anybody that ever has told me a lot of this stuff, and we figured it out kind of the hard way.
Yeah, this is kind of the arch nemesis, but we have figured it out the hard way.
Meaning that people would bring in their used gear for like our used gear section and would put it on consignment, and we would, ask them, okay, cool, what size are these boots? And they would say 28, and you'd be like, okay, cool, and you'd write that down, and like, why wouldn't you think they were 28 if they told you? And then later we would find out they are not a 28 or they are not a 9 or they are not whatever. So not only just do people not know always what size boot that they're wearing, but we realize that through the years and the iterations of things, the way that sizes have been indicated on the boots so that people do think they do or do not know has changed.
It's very weird.
It is.
So
this is
really
probably
kind of dumb.
We're here to share some knowledge.
This is probably one of the weirder
If you think
things.
you know what size boots you are, maybe you do.
Yeah, if they're a
Maybe
newer
you
one, you
don't.
probably do, because it's
But
more obvious. But
let
some
Ash-
of the older ones.
We'll let Ash take the mic over. Well, we got 3 mics. We'll let Ash start speaking
Yeah, you can have my mic.
and explain to us. Okay, so maybe I walk into our shop. Hey, I got these boots. What size are they? I don't know. Let me look at my boots. I open up the tongue on my boot, and the tongue says 7/8. Oh, my boots are 7/8.
This is by far the most common
About
thing.
that.
If you're listening out there, you probably think you have a 7/8 boot, but we're about to help you
blow your mind. We are about to throw some knowledge at you. No.
All right. So, Ash,
and honestly, we had to learn this. Like, it's, if you look at that, why wouldn't you think your boot is a 7/8? It's on the boot.
Yeah, it's stamped on the shell, 7/8.
But what we learned is certain parts of the boot were used on multiple shell sizes, and the tongue is one of those. So your boot is either a 7 or an 8. However, that 7 or 8, then we can take it to the next level, is a UK size, not a US size. The plot thickens.
Yeah, the plot thickens. Rewind a little bit when Josh was fitting me for boots. I'm in a 27, US men's 9. Guess what number is stamped on the bottom half of that boot? 8.
On a Scarpa boot, just to
on
be
Scarpa.
clear.
Yeah, we can talk about other brands in a second, but we'll just start with Scarpa because that's like the most common 7/8. Other brands stamp things differently.
So, and what they're referring to is there's a stamp on the bottom of Scarpa boots, probably from the Bumblebee era of the T1, which is the yellow and black one, somewhere in that zone.
Mid-90s?
No, that'd be early 2000s boots.
Oh.
So if you are a Scarpa wearer, or maybe you picked up a pair of Scarpas, there's
T1s and T races.
Right.
This is the easiest one to tell.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the arch of the boot underneath.
Yeah, on the outside by the Vibram sole. Yeah.
Yeah, but not the T2s of that era.
No,
that
is so bizarre.
That is correct.
So just to make it more fun for you guys,
we're talking about two specific boots: T race, T1.
So let's
back it up.
Let's back it up a little bit. So, because this is where it gets confusing, people.
This is why it's really fun, and why a lot of people don't know what size boot they have if it's an older boot, and it makes sense.
So what we're gonna do is, and we're gonna cover. I'm going to have us back up because I think the first thing we need to talk about, and I was going to talk about this later, but I feel like maybe we need to interject really quickly here about the myth of half sizes, because I think this will actually help us in explaining how to identify what size you actually have.
Okay, so Josh, you got me in that new 27. It's really tight. Bro, give me the 27.5. I just need a little more room.
Just a little.
Is that right?
Common question. So, no, it actually is not right. And this is why. So, currently, in this state of the game of Telemark, there are 3 boot companies manufacturing boots. In the last, let's say, 15 years, there were 4 manufacturers making boots. So, currently, you have the most prevalent in the United States is Scarpa. You've also got Scott, which used to be Garmont, and you have Crispy. Those are the 3 companies currently manufacturing Telemark boots. The 4th would be Black Diamond. And people are definitely going to come across those in the used gear market. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to divide those 4 companies in the last 15 years into 2 camps. I'm going to put Garmont, Scott, because Scott bought Garmont at one point, and I'm going to put Black Diamond in one camp. In the other camp, I'm going to put Scarpa and Crispy in camp number 2. So going back to camp number 1 with Black Diamond and
Garmont
/ Scott.
Yeah, Garmont / Scott. They manufacture boots that break on what we call the full size. And to be clear with these 2 camps, no Telemark boot actually has a true half size in terms of the shell. So what that means is that a 26.5 is not actually a 26.5. So we want to dispel this myth. And this kind of gets a little bit complicated. So let me see if I can kind of simplify these camps. Black Diamond and Scott Garmont are going to break or change the sizing on the full size. So going back to Taylor's example of a 27.0, in Garmont, Scott, and Black Diamond, a 27.0 shell is also a 27.5 shell. It is actually
really the 27 is just the liner.
Yeah, correct. The liner will read 27.0, but technically, once you mold that liner, it has the potential to go up to the 27.5 end of the shell size. Now, if you go to Camp 2 where you have Scarpa and Crispy, it breaks or changes on the half size. So what that means is, again, going back to Taylor's thing, I measured him at a 27.0. A 26.5 Scarpa boot or Crispy boot is also a 27.0 shell. It is identical. As far as we've learned over the course of the last 5 years I have in the shop, you're literally talking about maybe a 3 millimeter difference in the liner. Most times it's going to mold out. So Tay asks, hey, I want to go to a 27.5. I just need that extra little space. I'm not going to recommend that he goes up because a 27.5 is actually a 27.5 / 28.0 shell. So it's actually a 28 shell, and he is measuring at a 27 shell. So
when we're saying that, we're talking about purely the lower of the boot, or the scafo.
Correct.
As the Italians say.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the lower part of the boot. So that part. So basically, if I were to like size you up to a 27.5, I'm really doing you a disservice and taking you into it too large of a boot, which I think is most common. Like that's what happens. People put that liner on, or they don't understand where the breaks happen.
Yeah,
because think about
I
shoes.
made this mistake myself when I first started working at the shop, and I first was due to buy a new pair of boots. I tried on a 27. It was super tight, and I was like, nah, I'll get a 27.5. Felt great when I took it out of the box. I mean, awesome. Like, yeah, let's go skiing in it. As soon as I skied it for like 5 days, and I'm like, yeah, this is too big.
Yeah.
Because it's the next shell size up.
Well, and that's why we really are big advocates around here of molding your boots. Number one, because why wouldn't you want your boot to fit you on day one? Like, why you want to wait till day 30 and go through misery as one guy said the other day, the new boot blues. Like, mold your boot. There's no blues. There's only happiness. And it stays dancing around.
I mean, it's still a new boot, but yeah. We can make that feel a lot better.
No, but so you kind of have to think about it as if the shell is the one size. So whichever, boot you're in, the shell is one size. The next size up is a whole size new shell. So even though your liner is going to start off a little bit more dense if you have the smaller size liner in your shell, once you mold it, it's going to be packed out to fit your foot exactly in the shell you're in. So if your foot is a little bit smaller, because maybe you're like a true half size, foot person, then your liner is only going to mold out that far in your shell. But if you're a true whole size person, you're going to mold that liner all the way out to fit in the shell. So like literally you're 27, you're a 26.5, either one of those in a Scarpa boot or a Crispy boot is going to end up the same once you mold it. It's going to fit your foot. And that's why we're really big around here on making sure we do get you in the right shell, because that's the important part.
Right. So basically, just to cap things off on that without getting too crazy, you guys, there are no half sizes in Telemark boots. They do not exist.
It's a marketing thing.
At least after like day
kind of
5.
Yeah. Like maybe that brand new liner is a little bit different, but I can make a 26.5 fit like a 27 in a Scarpa, or in a Scott, I can make a 27 fit like a 27.5.
Yep. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So I want
to.
Yeah, I know.
Circling back.
Hopefully all you listeners out there are kind of hanging in there, because that's definitely getting into the weird of this whole thing, and we get it. So what I'm going to do is let Ashley explain a little bit about where she kind of touched on the markings on the plastic parts of the boot, which she explained is used for different sizes of the boot on the upper part, especially the cuff stuff. So you just have to be careful which numbers you're actually looking at. And I think maybe explain a little bit about maybe somebody picked up an older boot, like especially some of the used gear. They come in, they're buying an older T2 it has a non-moldable liner, and maybe explain to them, like, they look at that boot. First off, they're going to look at the plastic markings you talked about, but maybe what else are they going to look at?
Well, first of all, I want to go even maybe back a little further than where we kind of started, which is the reason that those other numbers like 7/8 or 9/10 or whatever you might see on your boot are there is because Mondo sizing did not become the standard until later on. And so at that time, they were using the UK size. And honestly, around here, we have wondered why didn't they use Euro sizing? But that's a whole other thing. But if anybody knows, that would be great, because why they picked UK seems kind of strange. But anyway, point being, that's why. Then, of course, once they transitioned to using Mondo sizing as the standard, those markings have kind of stuck around in certain spots. But, you know, we refer to them as the Mondo sizing in order to kind of standardize everything just in general. So if you have an older boot, the liners are always going to be stamped, but some of those stamps wear off over time. Some of them were done a little bit better than others, or they might be on a tag on your black diamond boot or whatever. But so that's always the number one place to look, is can you see on your liner what size is it? Because that's really going to determine it. Because honestly, the only place that the half size might actually make a difference too is if you do have a really old boot that doesn't have a moldable liner, because then it might be a little more snug. But if you are trying to determine generally what size shell are you in, so that now if you come and you need to buy a new boot or just buy a different boot in general, you would know, you know, where to start. You really are going to need to figure out what is this actual shell. So it is really nice that if you have a T1 or a T-Race, as was alluded to earlier, where on the bottom of the boot, in like basically the midsole area, it actually has that UK size. So that is the UK size. So if you see an 8 on your boot, that's a UK 8, which if you look at Scarpa's size conversion chart, they consider that to be today a US men's 9, or no.
Men's 9?
Yes.
Men's 9, women's 10, 27
women's
Mondo.
10, 27 Mondo. And so that's, you know, how you can tell those. So those ones are actually awesome. Like when we get those in, we're stoked because it's super easy. We don't have to look at any tongues, any heels, any liners, whatever. It doesn't matter. And then if you go into some of the eras, though, you can look at the back of the liner and it's going to be stamped. Some of them are a little more obvious. It's like big on like towards the top of the liner. Some of the older T2s that have like the lace-up liners, if you've ever seen those ones, it was stamped more towards the bottom near the heel. And those ones have stuck around decent. Sometimes those ones have worn off as well. But that's like the best way to try to figure out exactly which of the two numbers you have.
Or worst case, you could get a tape measure and compare it to a modern sole length chart. And then we start talking about other boots too. You know, with Garmont, for example, they're going to stamp the like far end of that shell on the lower of the boot. So like if you pulled out the liner of a Garmont Energy boot, it'll say like 27.5. So then that's going to help. That's easily identifiable as a Mondo point. Black Diamond,
some of them
I
it's
think
on
is
the
the same
heel too. Like everyone always goes to the tongue, I think, because that's like
that's
most
the easiest to get. But we
accessible.
definitely got to look at the lower.
You got to do
part
the
of the
work.
boot.
You got to take out the liner.
Yeah, take the liner.
You got to get inside. You got to get dirty inside the boot, and you got to look at what it's actually, because certain parts of the boot were only used for one shell size, and so a lot of times you can actually look. So you might look at the tongue first. You'll see 7/8, but then if you get down in there and you look at like more of the back piece near the heel inside of the shell, a lot of times you will actually find just the one number.
Yeah, we're looking for one number. If it's a ski boot size, although there's a half size, there's going to be one full number there.
So at that point, your boot's either going to say 7 or 8. And
not 7/. Yeah, nope. Correct. Or if all of that seems way too complicated and you just want to call our shop and say, hey, I'm due for a new pair of boots. This old pair has fit me great. What size should I buy? We can repeat everything we just said.
And sole length is another good way. Like the ultimate is like if you're just looking all over and there's definitely nothing left on your liner and you're maybe more confused than we started because we told you that it's confusing. The sole length is another good way to determine. So
I think that was a good overview. Hopefully out there for all you total like gear nerds, that's a deep cut. So just so you know, like,
good times at the Freeheel Life over the years.
Yeah,
making sure that
if you're someone listening to this and you're just getting into telly, or you really don't care about crazy stamps on the plastic, and you're just like, hey, can I just call you guys? You can totally call us. We'll help you figure it out. I think that's the main thing, is that there's a lot of misinformation that we've found, and just in terms of trying to help people size things from old to new, and hey, I like this boot in this brand and I'm trying to move to this brand. That's the kind of stuff that we hope this will help you with.
Yeah, because just because you wore a 27.5 in one boot doesn't mean that the 27.5 in the other is going to fit you the same, because if it's the different manufacturer, it might actually be a different shell size.
When we're talking about the whole versus the half size break, I may have well been in a 27.5 Garmont boot, and then when I walked in the shop and said, oh, I want to try this other brand on, this one seems to fit me well. Okay, I could go from 27.5 Garmont all the way down to 26.5 Scarpa, and it's going to be that same kind of basic 27 shell.
That's a great way to put it. So, all right, you guys, that was some deep cut. That was some deep cut stuff. I think
crazy out there. Watch out.
It is crazy out there. Thanks for going deep with us.
And that's why
where to look on your shell
if
size
you hit
for
us
some
up,
random stamp.
We're happy to help you, because people do email us and they see a used boot on our site and they say, hey, can you check the tongue and see if it says 9/10?
Yeah, then
it's like no, because it might say 9/10, but yours might be a 9 and
50,
this might be
chance,
a 10.
Though. I mean, that's pretty good odds.
We are happy to help because we want you to get a boot fits.
Yeah. So that's kind of it, you guys. I think we tried to go, when we first started and you heard boot podcast, maybe you didn't quite think it would end up being this, but I think these are some of those topics that were like, man, I wish we could get it out there and help people understand some of these basic topics where you think like, oh, sizing Telemark boots, that's easy, and maybe you don't even know that the half size thing is an issue, or how different manufacturers are actually measuring differently.
And considering that we didn't know all of that before we all started.
No, we learned that.
Why would you? We're not expecting you
figuring
to.
It out.
That's why we're here. That's why we are dropping this knowledge bomb right on you.
I think that's actually why I know we've all joked about it, because I feel like every time we start a new season, we're like, hey, do you remember? Oh yeah, does that mean? And none of us can remember. We have to like remind each other. We're getting better now. I think
it takes a village to figure out your boot size. That's the Freeheel Life.
That's perfect. All right, you guys. So I think do
we have a little goodie for anyone that made it this deep in the podcast?
Yeah, if you. Oh, that's right.
That's right. Who wants to be the bearer of good news?
Why don't you be the bearer of good news?
Maybe me, because I'm the only one that remembered it.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the deal. If you're due for a new pair of boots, you got until January 31st to hop on our website. New pair of boots, podcast 10 will save you 10% off a new pair of boots. So if you made it this far, you deserve a little bit of savings. Save you 10% off a fresh pair of boots.
That's a lot of breakfast burritos.
That is so many. That's so many PBRs.
Oh, yeah. Or local craft brews.
Or breakfast burritos.
Whichever.
If you're under 21.
That too, for sure.
Bottom line is, if you're due for a new pair of boots, treat yourself. I think it definitely can be the most expensive part of the gear equation, but it's probably going to last you the longest. That's what makes me feel good about being a Telemark boot salesman some days, some of my many hats that I wear here at the Freeheel Life. I know that you are investing in fun, and that money is that's gonna last you a long time. I mean, we see people here that have got 10 seasons or more out of their boots. So if you really broke that $700 boot purchase down to 10 seasons, 50 days a year, it's a bargain.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So podcast 10, PODCAST 10 on checkout. Save yourself 10%.
And that's really how you guys can support this. The podcast is, you can buy your Telemark gear at freeheellife.com. That's us. And if you're looking for more news, gear reviews, all that, you can go read that on telemarkskier.com. We're really trying to put more content out these days. You can obviously find the shop or Telemark Skier magazine on Instagram and all that good stuff. It should be in the show notes.
Facebook.
Yeah,
Twitter.
Facebook, Twitter.
I think we still post on there. I don't, but someone does probably.
Yeah.
Other people tag me and things.
We can follow Ashley at Ash311 on Instagram.
That's my birthday.
Spin class.
Not the band.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Hopefully you're listening.
If you want some spin class action on Instagram,
or indoor cycling, anyone?
If you want to check out my page at Telite, I'm currently, for the first time in 5 years, taking a school semester January to May during the peak of ski season. So forgive me if the ski content isn't coming as regularly, but I have Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays to ski, and also working a full-time job and also being a full-time student. So I will be epically busy this winter.
It's like you're an adult or something.
Your posting's going to suffer.
My posting, I think the quality's been pretty good. I've been happy with it. I've had a limited number of days this winter, but I've just absolutely nailed the days.
You've been lucky. I know you show up and it's like,
other than today allegedly was deep and blower and best day of the year, and I definitely saw a couple
nuking.
Definitely saw a couple Instagram pictures from my friends that
don't be
jealous, but you know what? I got my fix on Monday. Bluebird powder day. It was the first time I took the low light lenses out of my goggles in weeks.
Ooh.
Not that I'm complaining. That means we got snow, but it was like every once in a while it's nice to see the sun, and I hadn't taken those lenses out in weeks, so it's fun to put the sunny lenses in.
I love it. You guys are crushing it. Thanks for being here. Last thing, let us know how we're doing. Rate and review us. It helps us kind of get up in the rankings of like the only Telemark podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, we want to be your favorite Telemark podcast. Oh, wait,
we're the only one right now.
That's all right.
Anyways, but if you want to email us, I've been getting a lot of cool emails. You can email the podcast at podcast@freeheellife.com. I will do my best to respond as quickly as I can. I've been trying to keep up on those.
Keep trying to send us questions for just a random mailbag episode. We teased this like way back, like 3 episodes that I was on ago. So that's probably like 5 episodes ago. Just send us whatever questions you want.
Yeah.
We talk about gear a lot, so ask you something different. You
must have some questions after this episode too.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about gear too, but just whatever you want. What's our favorite color? I don't know. Our favorite place to ski. Whatever you want. Let's bring the listeners into the mix a little bit.
Yeah. We would love to hear from you guys, like your own Telemark stories, where you live, what you're up to, events that are going on we don't know about. You name it, we're stoked, and we want to check it out. And it's cool to see the whole community coming together. Thanks for everybody that's listening out there. And I think this is it. Signing off. Do you guys need anything else before we cut this one off? You guys good?
Last thing I want you guys to send to the email. If you think you're the farthest away from Salt Lake City, send me an email, or send podcast@freeheellife.com an email, because I don't know, we'll give you an internet cookie if you're the farthest away. But that would be cool. I want to see how far does our Telemark community reach.
Interesting.
I think I might know who it is if they're listening.
Is it purely mileage?
Siberia. Our friends in Siberia.
Shout out to Sergey Lebdev.
Sergey.
Yeah,
Sergey, if you're listening.
Not everybody has friends in Siberia.
So just so you guys know, and actually and the funny thing is I was just emailing Sergey the other day. And for those of you, this is total side note. I can't even believe we're talking
we can't even wrap it up. It's all right.
You thought you were done, but you're still here.
I'm emailing these guys. They have an actual Russian Telemark festival that's happening, that they're putting on, and I think this is year number 2.
But does it have a chili cook-off like the Midwest Telefest? Because that really appeals to my interests.
Probably has a vodka drinking contest.
I could get down with that too.
That's actually really, I don't know. Midwest Telefest is coming up too. If you guys want to head to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan,
UP.
That's in February. I think, what did I say, 12?
But anyway,
Feb 12.
Second annual.
9, 10, 11,
but there's a Russian Telemark festival. So, yeah. Anyways.
I don't know. It depends. We'll have to get out on Google Maps and see
who's furthest.
Send us your city. We want to see, because I know, there's a few Telemark skiers down in Australia, which is a long, long way from here.
I feel like that is like the longest flight you can take from the United States, isn't it? Is to Australia.
Yeah, that is pretty
Unless
far.
you're listening from Mars, something really far away.
Oh.
We'll see.
All right.
There's life
If there's any astronauts listening to the Freeheel Life podcast, you win.
Telemark astronauts or Telemark aliens. Podcast at freeheellife.com. Send us your questions from the mailbag episode.
Oh, man. All right.
Okay.
You guys are awesome.
With
that,
peace out.
Signing
If you
off.
made it this far, good for you. We'll see you next time.
Don't forget to get your discount on your boots. And thanks for listening.
10. Thank you.
See ya.
Later.
Bye.
Ciao.